I think we're going now. Okay. Turn back to Ruth chapter 3. Ruth chapter 3. Since we were out for a week, I'm going to run back to where we were a couple of weeks back. We'll read back through those verses. We're going to start in verse number 6 of Ruth chapter 3. And since we've been gone a couple of weeks, we'll run back through those to bring us back to where we're going to begin tonight. So, we will start in verse 6 of Ruth chapter 3, and I'm going to read down through verse 11. We'll take just a minute, go over that real quick, just to remind you, because that's very important to set us up for where we're going to get started tonight. So, beginning in verse 6, it says, "So she," and that would be Ruth in this situation, "went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Now it happened at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and there was a woman was lying at his feet. And he said, 'Who are you?' She answered, 'I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative.' Then he said, 'Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request, for all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman.'" So, here, we've been walking through this kind of building love story here. And clearly there has been this attraction between Ruth and Boaz. And her mother-in-law, Naomi, could clearly see what was going on here. And so she, who is now playing the role, if you will, of mother to her daughter-in-law, puts together a plan. And if you remember, she told her basically, put on your best dress, fix your hair, fix your face, look as good as you possibly can, and go down to the threshing floor where he will be, and then uncover his feet and lay down next to him. I told you, this is not something unseemly or sexual here. When she says, basically, take me under your wing. This is where she makes a request of Boaz to be her Goel. And that word Goel is what we refer to as the kinsman redeemer. And we've talked about that quite a bit, but that story's going to continue to build here. Now, she does exactly as her mother-in-law has told her. And it is very clear that she does not defile herself in any way, because look back at verse 11. Here's what Boaz says: "My daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request, for all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman." Boaz is clear. I will do this for you because of who I am in relation to Elimelech. And let's remember, Elimelech was Ruth's father-in-law who died, and her husband died also. So Boaz is a godly man. We've already built that in this story. He sees Ruth as a godly woman. And here, he is impressed with her because she does not take into consideration his age. She does not take into consideration nationality. She does not take class or anything else into her idea of him either. He is impressed with her because she is a virtuous woman, and I think it's very clear she is impressed with him because he is a virtuous man. This is a beautiful picture, beautiful biblical picture of God bringing together two godly people, and who are, as we will see, who are going to be joined together in God's eyes. The sovereign plan of God is the star of the book of Ruth, just as it is so many other books. Clearly, God is arranging all of this. It's easy to look at this and say, no, Naomi is the one who's arranging this. No, God is arranging this. Because the story here of Ruth is not just going to be about two godly people who find each other and get married and live happily ever after. The story here is what's going to come from the future joining together of these two godly people. There's a much greater prize here than just this beautiful love story that we're seeing here. This relationship, as a matter of fact, this relationship, Boaz finding Ruth, Ruth finding Boaz, is not the main goal of God's will here. It's part of God's will, and it is part of God's plan, but it is only the beginning of what God is going to do, not the ultimate piece of what God is going to do. So let's move on forward now, back to where we're going to start anew tonight in verse number 12, and we will read verse 12 and 13 here. And it says, Now it is true, I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you as the Lord lives. Lie down until morning. Listen, when God is at work, that does not eliminate the fact that there are earthly obstacles that we have to deal with all of the time. Even in God's sovereign plan, there are bumps in the road, and this is a pretty big bump. So here's what happens. The kinsman redeemer, the one who would first have the right to be the kinsman redeemer for someone, is the closest relative. And what Boaz tells her here was probably devastating when she heard it. He says, I'm willing to be your kinsman redeemer, but I'm not the closest relative. In other words, there's somebody who has to go before me. He makes a vow here to Ruth and says this, I will be your Goel, your kinsman redeemer, unless this other man wishes to do it. The kinsman redeemer and who could perform it is not just a custom. It is very closely followed. And Boaz, as a godly man, despite the fact that I believe, and listen, the Bible doesn't tell us this, but it appears to be so obvious, that there is more here than just an obligation to Boaz. He has gone out of his way already to do amazing things for this young Moabite woman. Listen, most men, when they're smitten, they wind up doing a lot of things that they probably won't do for anybody else. Okay? I mean, and here it's clear to me, at least, that there is not only an obligation here, I believe there's a physical and a spiritual connection that is building between this couple. I think she is as interested as him as he is in her, but there's something in the way. And it's another man. He is not first in line to take this role. Someone else is. So Boaz will not cheat, if you will. He will not violate this custom, which is treated as law back in those days. It was not part of God's law. It was Jewish and religious custom. But he will not violate it because he's a godly man. So he says to her, she is there with him, remember. He says to her, just stay here, and I will go approach this man, and I will tell him about your need. And if he does not or is not willing to do it, I will do this for you. So that brings us now to verse number 14. So it says, so she lay at his feet until morning, and she arose before one could recognize another. Then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Also, he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. Now, I could understand if someone didn't understand exactly what this book was about. They could go, wait a minute. Not too long ago, you said nothing nefarious, nothing wrong, nothing scandalous occurred here. That's right. Nothing scandalous occurred here. But it'd be fair for somebody to then go, okay, so if nothing scandalous occurred here, why is he going out of his way to sneak her out in the dark and to make sure that nobody knows she has been there? I can easily see why somebody would come to that, because as human beings, our minds will almost always naturally go to something negative before we have any proof something negative is actually going on. But there are reasons why he did this. I've told y'all this before, and I don't even know how many. I have 7 or 8 study Bibles that I use. That's why my wife is always fussing about the fact that our kitchen table, we rarely get to eat at the kitchen table because one entire end of it is just covered in study Bibles, and my tablet is there, and my glass of lemonade or a mountain. That end of the table is just covered at all times. We brought our kids over to have supper with us the other day, and Tiffany celebrated more about the fact that I took all my stuff into another room and put it somewhere for a couple of days, and talked about how much she enjoys seeing it. My point is, I love to have a lot of different sources to research. I like to present facts. Especially when you're in the Old Testament, there are customs and things that are going on there that you could read every word of the Bible 10 times and not know these things. Because the Bible doesn't tell us every custom. It doesn't give us every detail of everything. And sometimes extra biblical writings, in other words, just regular historians, tell us a lot about how life was back then. So here's a little bit of what some of my study Bibles pointed out as to why what appears to be something sneaky here is actually all about the fact that she is, by his own words, a virtuous woman. And the first one was this: At that time, women were almost never out in the middle of the night. And the ones that were typically prostitutes, plain and simple. Now, prostitutes worked at night. You know, I'm sure for the most part they still do. I almost never go to a big city, and I mean, I'm not kidding you. I wouldn't bother me if I never went to another one. And if I do, we're never typically in the part of town where you see things like that. But I've been to big cities, and years ago, I went to a sporting goods trade show in Las Vegas, and it does not matter which part of Las Vegas you go to, because even the wealthy, well-to-do part of town, there are ladies of the night everywhere that you go. It's not illegal there in parts of Nevada, so it's different than anywhere else. But also, and this is still true too, not just of women, but men and women who are involved in adulterous activities with someone besides their spouse typically operate under the cover of darkness too. In the Bible, darkness represents evil and sin, and light represents righteousness. Now, obviously, the fact that it gets dark does not mean that something bad is going on. But the Bible specifically, more than one place, says this basically. People who go out in the dark for sinful reasons. And it says they love the darkness because the darkness does not expose the evil things that they are doing. And then it says men hate the light because the light exposes us for who we really are. So, if someone had seen her by herself without Boaz, this virtuous woman who has this wonderful reputation she has built up would have immediately been scandalized, because in their mind, no righteous woman would be out by herself in the middle of the night unless she was out there for some bad reason. And even if then, let's just assume now, okay, he sends her home sneakily. Is that a real word? Okay. Okay. Well, I know we're in West Kentucky, so we got a lot of words we use here that might not be real words, but yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said sneakily, but if it is a real word, either way, y'all know what I mean by it, okay? Let's just say Boaz decided to escort her home. Do you think that's any less scandalous in a bunch of people's eyes? No. Here she is. She's out in the middle of the night. Who's she with? One of the most powerful, wealthy men in the entire region. Once again, in most people's eyes, had they seen either one of these situations occur, her virtuous reputation would have been ruined, and Boaz wants to make sure that her reputation is not going to be damaged, because Boaz is a godly man, and Boaz cares about her, and he is going to do whatever it takes to protect her. That's what a man is called to do for the woman he loves. And that's all this really comes down to. Not to even mention this. This has not changed, but it might have been even worse back then. A single woman back in these days out in the middle of the night was a victim waiting to happen. And if a single woman went out tonight by herself, nobody else with her, and walked down the back streets of a large city in this country, She is almost begging for something bad to happen to her, because there are so many evil people who lurk in the darkness waiting for an opportunity. These city streets in the middle of the night were a dangerous place for a single woman, even if she was out there for a good reason. So there's plenty of ways to explain this. Boaz proves this when he basically said this to her as we were reading. People do not need to know that you were here. This is not because he's covering up something to make himself not look bad. He's doing this. Let's remember, Boaz has done nothing here. Boaz was asleep. She is the one who came there. She is the one who came and laid down next to him. She lifted his cover, placed it on herself, and said to him, will you take me under your wing? In other words, will you be my redeemer? So Boaz has done nothing, but he is just going out of his way here because, number one, I think he's in love with her already. Number two, she's a virtuous woman, and he will not allow her reputation to get soiled when what she is doing is a righteous act. Boaz is no fool. He's a wise man. He's already been called that. He's a powerful man. Boaz understands how the world works. He knows if anybody sees her tonight in the middle of the night by herself, or even if they see her with me, we have got a scandal on our hands. When it comes to wealthy, powerful men and young, beautiful women out in the middle of the night, it's National Enquirer headlines. Just write it down. He does not want to see her reputation get soiled. Now look back at verse number, let's go, where did I stop at? 15. Also he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. This, once again, if you remember, he has given her large amounts of grain already. Here, once again, he gives her a large amount of grain to take back to Naomi. Now remember, Naomi is at home. Naomi's helped master this plan like any good mama would. Any good mama would be like, honey, that's the most eligible bachelor around here. He would be an amazing catch. He's a wonderful, compassionate, godly man who is also wealthy and powerful. He's quite a catch, and he is smitten with you. And Naomi, I'm guessing like probably any mother here, is sitting at home probably chewing on her fingernails, wondering exactly what is happening. How's my plan working? How are things working out? So Boaz sends her back with this grain to take to Naomi, to show Naomi that he did not send her back empty-handed. He has sent her back carrying one of his blessings. His blessing is wealth, and he is a wealthy farmer. And this is back in these days, someone like Ruth, as we've talked about before, could easily starve to death. She's a foreigner here. Nobody owes her nothing. And Boaz has been bestowing blessing after blessing after blessing on her. And he wants Naomi to understand, I'm not just sending her back in the middle of the night. I'm sending her back carrying a blessing for her and one for you also. So look at verse number 16. So Ruth now is returning home. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Naomi here says, is that you, my daughter? Then she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, these 6 ephahs of barley he gave me, and he said to me, Do not go empty-handed home to your mother-in-law. So here again, he is not only treating Ruth with respect, he's also respecting Naomi here. He is showing that he cares about Ruth, and he's showing that he also cares about Naomi. And now we get to verse 18. Verse 18 is quite an entertaining verse. So let's look at verse 18. Then she said, this is Naomi speaking, "Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day." So, by appearance, to me, Ruth comes home. Ruth comes home, she's jacked up. She's very excited. She has gone, and the man of her dreams has said to her, unless this other man messes up our plan, I'm yours. I'm going to do for you what you desire me to do for you. And listen, engagement day, if you will, is kind of what this is. Engagement day is a big deal for both men and women. I think it's a bigger deal for women because men are so scared of it. Whenever I asked Tiffany to marry me, she said yes, and I said to her, I think she would agree, this is probably the most romantic thing anybody ever said to her. I told her, I think I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and throw up. Yes. So our marriage started off really romantic right from the get-go. So, but it's a big day when a man, listen, what he has said to her for all practical purposes is, I will be your man till the day you die. Unless this other man who's out there is going to mess this up. And she goes home. She is over the moon, if you will, runs back to Naomi, tells her everything Boaz has said, and it appears that she is so excited that Naomi says to her, calm down, child. Just wait just a minute. You're not going to have to wait long. Naomi knows who Boaz is. She knows what kind of man Boaz is. Naomi basically says, that man is not going to rest until he gets this taken care of. I think Naomi is showing here there's more than, once again, there's more than just an obligation here. This is not a man who just says, listen, I'm in line, yeah, I'll do this. This is a man who wants to do this. This is a man who is not only smitten with a young woman. In my opinion, this is a man who is being led by Jehovah God, just as she is. You know, all of us who are married, we all have a love story to tell at some point in our relationship. I think it's very clear the Lord does not bring every marriage together. I think a lot of times if we would wait on God, we would wind up where we need to be. But we all make mistakes. We all sometimes jump when we shouldn't. You know, I always, and I'm not a fan of this musician, but I like this song. I'm not a fan of Garth Brooks. Some of y'all may be big Garth Brooks fans. It just wasn't my music, okay? I like some country music, but I didn't care for Garth Brooks. But I like that song. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Probably most of us in this room when we were young, if we prayed, there's probably some time when many of us prayed to God over some young man or some young woman and said, Lord, all I want, if you just let me have her, I would never ask you for anything else again. And then, sometimes that might have been on the third date because, when you're young, love happens really quick in our mind. And then on date number 5, you're closer to the old song by Meatloaf that said, I'm praying for the end of time. That's all that I can do, praying for the end of time so I can end my time with you. Yes. Let me just let y'all in on a secret. That was not in my notes, okay? Listen. No, it's not in Scripture either. Neither Garth nor Meatloaf can be found in God's Word. But those points line up here in this story. This is not puppy love here, even though these two people have really, here at the threshing floor is the first time they have ever been alone together. That's hard for us in the modern world to imagine, but it's not that many years that was very common. My granddad passed away in 2016. Now, he was 95, but he shared with me some of his romance with my grandmother. And my grandmother was the oldest of 8 children. Just down the road here at the Bogard house on 94 down there. A little house that wasn't much bigger than this room, the whole house. And he shared with me that the first time him and my grandmother were ever alone together at all was when they got married. Because their dating was a matter of him who did not have a car making his way down to her house, and they would sit on the front porch while 7 other kids looked out the window and giggled behind them. And, it's hard to imagine sometimes when, we have this modern culture of dating where, Tiffany and I dated for 3 years before we got married. But when God is at work, these feelings are going to be real. Naomi has real feelings for Boaz. Boaz has real feelings for Naomi. And that is because, listen, God here is at work in these two people's life. I look back now, neither me nor Tiffany were Christians when we got married. Even though we were church kids our entire life, and if you had asked us if we were a Christian, I've shared this here before, both of us would have said yes. We had both were church members. We'd both been baptized. We'd both made a profession of faith. We'd both walked an aisle. We'd both did all those churchy things that you do, but we had never been made new. We had our same old hearts. And yet now we both are convinced that even though we were 2 lost people, that God looked forward and saw this night, me standing here tonight, knowing that I was going to need an amazing woman by my side because he had something he was going to lead me to do in my future. And I believe God brought me the perfect spouse for me, because I'm just going to tell you, there's nothing the Lord can give a pastor in this earthly world that will help him more than to give him the right wife. Because I have known numerous pastors in my life whose wives did not like the ministry. They did not like him being a pastor. They did not like the demands, the fact that, you know, I mean, listen, she could schedule something for him, and if his phone rings and so has had a heart attack, he's going to go jump in his truck and leave her at home with this big dinner she just fixed and go run to a hospital. And I had a good friend of mine who his wife loves being in the ministry with him, and they've had a great ministry and they've had all kinds of wonderful success. And he told me that his brother, who is also a pastor, married a woman who does not like being a pastor's wife. And in his own words, he said, my brother has been in an unwinnable war for years because she is not behind him. She is a Christian, but she does not like him being a pastor. She does not like everything that comes with it. She doesn't like the fact that people talk bad about him. Now listen, no wife does that. If somebody does something, but godly wives who have been given to a pastor, they understand what comes with the deal and they accept it, even the parts they don't like either. And you just can't tell me any different today. That the Lord was not looking all the way down the line to every pulpit I've ever stood in. And even though he brought two lost people together, he was at work in our lives and has been ever since. And I would have never gotten to where I am today if the Lord had not given me the right woman. I know that. And here God is working to give this man the right woman. And even though there's obstacles here and things of the world that are being thrown at them and all kinds of things, they've got a giant hurdle in front of them here. I wish that we had some real commentary from them right here. Because I mean, I'm thinking in my own life, not of a specific thing, just of a general thing here that I believe each and every one of you would agree with. I can't tell you how many times in my life I have probably thought, well, this is the obstacle I can't get around. Like, it's too big. There's a mountain. I know what Jesus said. If there's a mountain in your way, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, just tell this mountain to move. And he literally said, that mountain will move. And I know that, and I believe that, but there's no telling how many times I have run up against a wall somewhere and just thought, I can't break through this wall. I wish we had commentary here from Boaz. I wish it told us, and from Ruth. Because I would love to know if both of them right now are celebrating or terrified. I feel like because they're human beings, that Ruth may be sitting with Naomi right now going, can you believe this has happened? I've met the perfect man, and now there's another man who is in the way. And Boaz, as he literally says, I'm going to leave and go get this taken care of, I wish we had a picture of his thoughts right now. Because either way the story could go, I would love to read it. If he was right now thinking, wow, I can't believe I found this incredible woman, and now Joe over here, who's a closer relative than me, is probably going to ruin this. I mean, she's beautiful. Look at her. Now Joe's probably going to go, oh yeah, I'll take her, and I'm going to be out. Or is he walking right now saying to himself, okay, God, you've put all this together. I cannot wait to see what you're going to do. Both of those are the reality for all of us. There's times our faith has made it clear to us, the Lord's going to make this happen. There's other times when our doubt has made it clear to us, this is too much. It's not going to work out for me. only to find out how foolish we were to doubt God's word, to doubt God's promises. You know, here she says, this man is not just going to fulfill an obligation, Ruth. This man is in love, and this man is going to go get this situation taken care of right now. She literally says to her daughter-in-law, honey, just sit down and calm down. You're not going to have to wait long until you get your answer. Men get the job done quickly unless it is that honey-do list hanging on the refrigerator. The old saying, I really like it, ladies, when you tell your man that he needs to do something, there's no need to remind him every 6 months. He is going to get it done, okay? Here, Boaz, here Boaz is going to do better than me, because at almost any time at my house, there's a little yellow notepad with some things on there that Tiffany needs done that I have promised I'm going to get that next, honey. And I really meant it when I said it, and I still intend to do it, but I just haven't gotten there yet. Boaz is not going to be this way. Because Boaz is not just working off of his own desires here for this woman. God's plan here is working fully. And I would love to go further. We're too close to time, so we'll stop since we're at the end of chapter 3. Read chapter 4 if you haven't already. I'm sure most of you probably already have. But read chapter 4. And as you watch this plan come together, I want you to remember who is orchestrating it. It's not Naomi's plan. It's not Boaz's plan. It's not Ruth's plan. It's God's plan. And there is no obstacle that can be thrown in front of the God of the universe that will stop his plan from happening. Even at times when we act like Jonah and decide I'm going to run in the opposite direction of where God told me to go, as we saw with the prophet Jonah, there was a great fish waiting there to take him right back to the spot where God intended him to be. And we are now in chapter 4 going to watch these first 3 chapters come together. And Bobby and I were talking back and forth the other night. He had sent me a couple of texts, and we were talking about some things about Ruth. And you probably already know where the story of Ruth goes. But the story of Ruth here is the story of the lineage of Israel's greatest king and Israel's second greatest king. Because King David is not Israel's greatest king. King Jesus is Israel's greatest king, but King David is Israel's second greatest king, and both of those two people are going to come from this relationship. That's why this book is so important, with all of its beauty and all of this great poetry that it's written with. And I read one time that there are folks in the literary world who say that when this is read in the original Hebrew, that it is one of the most poetic and beautiful books ever written, not just in the Bible, just in the literary world. This is a story that you could tell this story, and people would love to read this story and read this adventure, even if they didn't believe in God, if you didn't tell them where it was heading. But for those of us who do, it is a perfect picture of the sovereign plan of God being drawn together through a godly man and a godly woman. And I can't wait for us to finish up in chapter 4 here very soon. Would you join me as I close us in prayer tonight? Father, I thank you for the privilege again tonight. I thank you for your sovereign will, God. I realize that if I just been left to myself, I would never have met any of the people in this room. I would never have made any of the hundreds and hundreds of friends that I have made in churches all over Western Kentucky. Because I would have never been where I am right now. It never crossed my mind, Lord. Never would have crossed my mind. And I know that if it weren't for your plans. Lord, I wanted the same things everybody else in this world wanted. Money and everything else, Lord. Everything that this world had to offer. And I am thankful, Lord, that you did not give me my prayers. I'm thankful you did not answer yes to my prayers for all the things I wanted from you. Instead, you gave me something 1,000,000 times better. You gave me salvation. You gave me the opportunity to serve you in the ministry. And you gave me wonderful Christian people in my life. Lord, I could never thank you enough. Father, I lift up everything this church is doing. It is so busy right now. So many people who have been so busy serving. I thank you for all of them, Lord. I thank you for all your churches tonight that teach the true gospel, and I pray you would bless their ministries. Father, that you would bless their pastors, their deacons, their leaders, all of their teachers, the folks who are working in their kitchens, Lord, because every one of them is so greatly needed. Father, we love you, thank you, and praise you in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. Thank you, friends, for joining me again tonight. And y'all have a good rest of the week. And Lord willing, see you back Sunday morning. God